Another context, historical context that I'd like to stress now is the time where Abitan is writing his essays, his short essays, his utopian essays. We're talking about the post-World War II period. And to this, David Gedge already related in his summary of the book. But I would like to stress some other points that are not as prominent in his summary. What I'm referring to is the fact that the relationships between Jews and Muslims were rapidly changing because of the presence of the French colonialism and the changes and some changes that it generated by its very being in Morocco. Moroccan Jews, by and large, preferred to identify with the French colonizer, hoping that with their identification they'll improve their social and economic and cultural and political status. To remind you, prior to colonialism, Jews were considered dhimma. Dhimmi, that is, Jews subordinated to Islam rule, a subordination that was clearly political, but also symbolic in the sense that there were all kinds of humiliating rites and symbols that reminded both Jews and Muslims the inferior stature of the Jews in Morocco. By this, I do not mean to say that necessarily Jews felt threatened or vulnerable in every moment of their life, but surely it was not a relation. These were not relationship between equals. In any event, the French colonialism and the promise, the promise of the mission civilisatrice that the French brought with them, which meant a kind of a project of Europeanization of the countries which they ruled. This promise allured, as I said, the Jews, and by their very identification with the French culture, Moroccan Jews distanced themselves from their Muslim neighbors. Muslims rightfully felt that Jews betrayed their mutual past, and Jews rightfully chose to identify with the French. Rightfully, but as Albert Memmi mentioned quite clearly, this was a kind of identification that was not eventually fruitful, in the sense that they were not absorbed into French culture, but rather they were rejected. There were all kinds of barriers that did not allow them to be fully integrated in French culture. So Jews were trapped between their separation from the Muslim majority and their rejection from the French dominating minority. This situation was enhanced by the very fact that Jews preferred to move into the spaces where French regime ruled, mainly the large cities, so that from the end of the 19th century, we witness a slow but fastly growing internal migration of Jews from the small villages in the hinterland to the larger cities, so that deracinization already began in Morocco itself. So there was a kind of migration already happening that detached Jews from their immediate surroundings and positioned them in the large cities. Within these cities, they tried to live near the French neighborhoods, and the fact that Casablanca, in particular, from where Abitan is writing, Casablanca was chosen as the main target for migration is important, is crucial, because Casablanca is a French creation. Casablanca, prior to the arrival of the French to Morocco, was a very negligible, very minor, unimportant small town. And only after French colonialism invested in this city, it grew in a rapid and amazingly rapid rhythm, and mainly because of the creation of a seaport, the seaport of Casablanca, that became one of the largest seaports in Africa by and large. The economy and the boost of economy was quite attractive, and the internal migration of Jews happened in a kind of, if to describe it schematically, in a kind of 2 steps. The first step was sending from the small villages the young boys, sending them to large cities like Casablanca for seasonal jobs. But gradually, these boys that grew up liked the life of city and refused to return back to their villages, and they preferred the city and of course also the avoidance of the family supervision. As time passed, also parents followed their sons, and they moved also to the large cities. So to sum up this kind of very brief and somewhat also superficial description, it is clear that Abitan, like many of his generation, feels the very fastly changing social scene in Morocco, and there is a kind of a worry about the future. This worry was enhanced by the Zionist delegates who tried to persuade Moroccan Jews to migrate to Israel, and their activity also destabilized the life of Moroccan Jews in general and in the large cities in particular. So basically, the book, by portraying a utopia, not only is a reaction that, as David Gage rightfully says, a reaction to the atrocities of World War II, but also in a way to shape or to propose a future that promises better life for the Jews in general, the Jews in particular, but also all the nations in general, because of his feeling of the opportunity that such dramatic changes can offer. So it is not surprising that a person who lives in a place like Casablanca, a place that, as I said, is the most that feels most dramatically the imminent changes. This is the setting of the place and the time that produces a text that Abitan proposed to us. Thank you.